Hi, my name is Jose Alvarez. I'll be presenting case 9.1 Unprofessional Conduct. Um, this particular case involves a elementary school teacher, Mrs. Petit, who instructs kids with intellectual disabilities. Um, Based on this article, Mrs. Petit is a very skilled, very patient, and devoted individual who is considered to be very dedicated to her students. And even though the job that she performs is very challenging, um, she basically um, um, has over 13 years of experience where she has received um, high and very positive evaluations by her school principal. She has shown to be competent and she has never been questioned on her teaching abilities. Unfortunately, also, Mrs. Petit, or the Petits, both husband and wife, um, do participate in non-conventional sexual lifestyle and wife swapping activities. And because of such liberal views that they have in sexual activities, they've um, have been seen on a couple of the local TV shows where they have presented and talked about their lifestyle. Unfortunately, some of her colleagues did recognize who they were, and as she continued with this activities, um, they both became members of a private club in LA called the Swingers. This particular place condones and allows or promotes this type of sexual activities with their membership, and it's held at a private location, exclusive to their members. It is not open to the public. Um, and this is one keyword that I will focus on is the private aspect, which is mentioned throughout this case study here, where basically everything is done in a private type of venue. Um, Now, while this is taking place, a undercover police officer who is later identified as Sergeant Burke is visiting one of these parties, and in doing so at a private residence, she observes, or he observes, Mrs. Petit performing fellatio to three men. Um, the time frame is irrelevant, but I guess at this particular time and case where this incident took place, um, she was arrested for performing this act of oral copulation. According to this, it states that it's a contravention of the California Penal Code, although um, I'm not sure when this was the case. Being a police officer for so many years, I've never heard of such a thing. There is a crime in the California Penal Code that makes this a felony, but it's usually because you're dealing with a minor or you're forcing or is being done in fear of. So here in this particular case, Mrs. Petit is involved with consenting adults, and there's no force or fear in the actions taken for the oral copulation. Needless to say, she is arrested, and she ends up taking a plea bargain for a misdemeanor charge for outraging public decency, which basically means indecent exposure. Um, uh, Time obviously elapses, and the State Board of Education gets wind of the crime, which then leads to disciplinary proceedings that ended up revoking her license to teach in the state of California, um, because of the fact that she was engaging in immoral and unprofessional conduct at the time of the incident, which, in the eyes of the State Board of Education, made them feel that she was unfit to teach. Obviously, Mrs. Petit fought her case at the California Supreme Court, and which was also they opted to upheld the case and agree with what the Board of Education decided. Um, she continued to argue and plead her case, taking it to the next level, which is the federal court. And at the federal level, she was able to plead her case one more time, and in the eyes of Justice Tobringer, this particular judge ended up rejecting the opinion of the majority, and argue that there was no evidence or no factual evidence to prove that Mrs. Petit was an unfit teacher, and that considering her record and her past, there was no signs of misconduct with the students, nor did she, and the justice did not anticipate or foresee any future problems that would involve any type of immoral behavior with students. Mrs. Petit has always been able to separate her personal life and private life from her professional life, to the tune that, like in the beginning, she has received high marks and positive reviews from her school principal. And there's nothing in her record that demonstrates or disproves the fact that that she can't teach her pupils, uh, um, and specifically in the aspect of moral principles. With that, though, I will say that what the judge Tobringer stipulates is that, um, and argues, is that the particular teacher should be allowed to teach and her license be reinstated based on the fact that studies have shown that 75 to 80% of the women at her educational level and age, because she is, I believe, 48 years of age, that it is very common for females to engage in oral copulation in this group. And it is very unrealistic for society to think that that this type of sexual behavior, one, is not happening, and two, assumes that teachers in their private lives should live a Victorian style of principle when it pertains to their sexual morality. This is what Judge Tobringer argues, which I agree. Additionally, I would say that I don't see this or view this as a crime. This is a private matter that would have not come to light if it weren't for this particular officer that was at this party. If anything, I would question the type of activity this individual was doing there at that location. Um, but um, it doesn't really quite state if this was a task force that was taking place or some sort of surveillance, and there's not sufficient information. But I will say that based on what the verbiage of 288 little a PC of the California Penal Code states, um, uh, Mrs. Petite does not meet the criteria for the elements of this crime, um, making this matter basically somewhat ludicrous and has no grounds for the State of Board of Education to start any type of um, disciplinary proceedings and revocation of her license. The presumption that her sexual activity and lifestyle prevents her from setting a proper example is obviously incorrect, as record shows. And I would definitely um, believe that um, what the board presented to the courts without doing their due diligence is obviously incorrect, and she should be reinstated and returned to work. Thank you.